Once upon a time, there was a man whose wife had died and a woman whose husband had also passed away. The man had a daughter, and the woman had a daughter as well. The two girls knew each other and often went for walks together. One day, they arrived at the woman's house. The woman said to the man's daughter, "Listen, tell your father that I'd like to marry him. Every morning, you'll wash in milk and drink wine, while my daughter will wash in water and drink water." The girl went home and told her father what the woman had said. The man replied, "What should I do? Marrying is both a joy and a torment." Finally, unable to decide, he removed his boot, which had a hole in the sole, and said, "Take this boot, go up to the attic, and hang it on the large nail. Pour water into it. If it holds, I'll marry the woman. If it leaks, I won't." The girl did as she was told, but the water had tightened the hole, and the boot filled to the brim. She reported this to her father, who climbed up to the attic himself. When he saw it was true, he went to the widow, proposed, and soon they were married. The next morning, when the two girls got up, there was milk for the man's daughter to wash in and wine for her to drink, while the woman's daughter had water to wash in and water to drink. On the second morning, both girls found only water to wash in and drink. On the third morning, the woman's daughter had milk to wash in and wine to drink, while the man's daughter had only water. From that day on, it remained this way. The woman became a bitter enemy of her stepdaughter, making her life miserable each day. She was jealous because the girl was beautiful and kind, while her own daughter was ugly and mean-spirited. One winter, when it was bitterly cold and the valley and mountains were covered in snow, the woman made a dress out of paper, called her stepdaughter, and said, "Put on this dress, go into the forest, and bring me back a basket of strawberries. I'm craving them." "Oh my God," said the girl, "strawberries don't grow in winter. The ground is frozen and snow covers everything. And why must I wear this paper dress? It's so cold my breath freezes, the wind will tear it to shreds, and the thorns will rip it off me." "Don't contradict me," snapped the stepmother. "Hurry up, and don't come back until you've filled the basket with strawberries." She handed the girl a crust of dry bread and said, "Here, this will be your food for the day." Secretly, she thought, "She'll freeze or starve, and I'll never have to see her again." The girl obeyed, put on the paper dress, and went out with the basket. Outside, there was nothing but snow and ice, not a blade of grass to be seen. When she reached the forest, she came upon a little house where 3 little men were peeking out of the window. She wished them good day and knocked on the door. They called out, "Come in." So she entered, sat on a bench by the stove, and began to warm herself and eat her bread. The little men said, "Give us some of your bread too." "Gladly," she replied, and shared her crust with them. They asked, "What are you doing in the forest in winter, and wearing such a thin dress?" "Oh," she said, "I have to fill this basket with strawberries, and I can't go home until it's full." When she finished eating, the little men handed her a broom and said, "Sweep the snow away from the back door." Once outside, the little men said among themselves, "What should we give her? She's so kind and good-hearted, sharing her bread with us." The first said, "I'll grant her the gift of becoming more beautiful every day." The second said, "I'll make it so that gold coins fall from her mouth every time she speaks." The third said, "I'll ensure that a king comes to marry her." Meanwhile, the girl swept the snow from the back door and discovered a patch of ripe, red strawberries growing beneath. She quickly filled her basket, thanked the little men, and hurried home to her stepmother. When she entered the house and said, "Good evening," a gold coin fell from her mouth. She told her stepmother what had happened, and with every word, more coins fell until the room was filled with gold. Her stepsister, envious, said, "That's outrageous, throwing money around like that," but secretly she wanted the same gift. The mother sewed a luxurious fur coat for her daughter, gave her bread, butter, and cake to eat, and sent her into the forest. The girl reached the house of the little men, but didn't greet them. Without a word, she barged in, sat by the stove, and began eating her food. "Give us some," the little men said. "There's barely enough for me," she replied, refusing to share. After she finished eating, they handed her a broom and said, "Sweep the snow from the back door." "Do it yourselves," she snapped. "I'm not your servant." She looked around for gifts but received nothing. Angry, she left the house. The little men conferred, "What should we give this rude, selfish girl?" The first said, "She'll become uglier every day." The second said, "Every time she speaks, a toad will fall from her mouth." The third said, "She'll die an unfortunate death." The girl searched for strawberries but found none. When she returned home and opened her mouth to complain, a toad fell out with every word, disgusting everyone. The stepmother's anger grew, and she plotted against the stepdaughter, whose beauty and grace increased daily. Finally, she boiled some thread in a pot, placed it on the girl's shoulders, gave her an axe, and sent her to the frozen river to bleach the thread. While the girl was at work, a splendid carriage passed by. Inside was the king, who stopped and asked, "Who are you, my child, and what are you doing here?" "I'm a poor girl, abandoned and forced to bleach thread in the cold," she replied. Moved by her beauty and plight, the king said, "Come with me." "Gladly," she said, happy to leave her cruel family behind. He took her to his castle, where they were married with great celebration, just as the little men had predicted. A year later, the queen gave birth to a son. When the stepmother learned of her stepdaughter's fortune, she and her daughter visited the castle. While the king was away, they seized the queen, threw her into the river, and replaced her with the stepsister, covering her face with blankets. When the king returned, the stepmother said, "The queen is sick and needs rest." But when he spoke to her, toads fell from her mouth. The king was suspicious but waited. One night, a servant saw a duck swimming into the castle. It asked, "Is the king awake or asleep?" "He's asleep," the servant replied. "What about the baby?" "In the cradle." The duck became the queen, fed her child, and swam away. On the third night, she told the servant to summon the king and have him strike her with a sword 3 times. When he did, she transformed fully into herself. The king kept her return secret until the baby's baptism. He then asked, "What punishment suits someone who throws another into the water?" "They should be sealed in a spiked barrel and rolled into the river," said the stepmother. "Then that shall be your fate," declared the king. He had the stepmother and her daughter sealed in a barrel and rolled into the river, never to harm anyone ever again.